In today's video, you're going to meet a gigantic deep-sea monster that's the stuff of nightmares and the only known venomous crustacean. First though, let's take a look at a creature that's well on its way to world domination. The marbled crayfish. Ah, the humble crayfish. Many species of crayfish, most of them go perfectly with a bit of butter and lemon. They usually grow larger than shrimp, and some would even argue that they taste better. Being the tasty little treats that they are, though, it's easy to think that they aren't exactly dangerous, which would be true for the most part. But what if I told you there was one species of crayfish that had the ability to wipe out all other living animals on the planet, and yes, that includes us humans as well. And while they wouldn't go about that by the usual sense, if they're left unchecked, they're probably going to be the dominant species on this planet at the end of time. Introducing the marbled crayfish, a species of crayfish that's popular in the pet trade, which, incidentally, is also a species that was brought about by accident. According to the most plausible origin story, the marbled crayfish is the offspring of two sloth crayfish that came from different parts of the world. The two mated, and the resulting offspring wasn't only a different species, but one that reproduces so rapidly they've become one of the worst invasive species in the entire world. You see, all marbled crayfish are female. They carry eggs in their bodies that don't require a male sperm to be fertilized. Hence, all baby marbled crayfish are genetic clones of their mother. They've since been found in the wild and now 22 countries, including Austria, Germany, and even the Ukraine. These guys will eat just about anything and can wreak havoc in any freshwater ecosystem, rapidly snuffing out populations of indigenous wildlife. On the plus side, they're pretty tasty and are easy to culture, so people are now looking into farming marbled crayfish to help with the planet's dwindling food supply. The American Lobster. Lobsters may be a symbol of decadent eating in our time, but once upon a time they were considered no more than prison food. American lobsters were once so plentiful that in the colonial era, indentured servants and prisoners ate lobsters because they were cheap and considered tasteless. In fact, prisoners in Massachusetts were so sick of eating lobster, a new rule was imposed that they only had to eat them 3 times a week. Oh, how times have changed since then, Massachusetts. These guys are weirdly amazing creatures, even for a crustacean. For one, they keep growing as long as they live, and they're also cannibalistic. And when it comes to tasting food, they don't do it with their mouths, they do it with their legs. And you know, speaking of their mouths, they technically do have one. But it's more just an opening that leads directly to their stomachs. Their stomachs that are filled with lobster teeth that chew and grind their food. Oh man, this is a nightmare creature, isn't it? Yeah, I told you, they're pretty weird. But what about lobster makes it so eligible for this list? Well, there's 2 big reasons, and they're probably the first 2 things you notice when you see a lobster. I'm talking about, of course, their pair of massive claws. While both of them can inflict serious pain, the other larger claw has been measured to exert a force of up to 100 pounds per square inch. This claw looks like it has molars because it's used to break up anything like crabs, clams, and mussels. The other smaller claw, on the other hand, was designed by nature to tear off the flesh from their prey. Hence, that's the reason why they got rubber bands in the stores. The mud crab. Mud crabs are the crustacean equivalent of landmines. No, they don't explode when you step on them, but the pain they can inflict has sometimes been likened to an explosion. These crabs sheltered waters such as estuaries and mangrove areas where they bury themselves in the mud, and these are the places where people go to hunt them. Yes, we do hunt them, because if you haven't tried eating one of these babies, well hey, you're missing out. Mud crabs are delicious and quite expensive. I, for one, love them, is what I would say if I liked seafood. People especially love female mud crabs bursting at the seams with their orange eggs though. And these guys get so big, around 20 centimeters across, just to give you an idea, and they're loaded with meat as well. Again, too bad I don't like seafood. Hunting these crabs out in the wild is quite dangerous, especially if one doesn't have adequate foot protection. Even setting your bare unprotected feet near one of these crabs will produce a reaction. They're quite nervous by disposition, and if they even feel a little bit threatened, they're gonna strike. And by strike, I mean use their massive claws to try and amputate your toe. Their vice-like grip is extremely painful, and once the claw is locked in, even pulling the claw off the animal wouldn't loosen its grip. They're also nocturnal, meaning it's best to hunt them at night, which actually increases the danger tenfold. When out hunting these crabs, make sure you don't handle them barehanded. The Floral Egg Crab. The pufferfish, one of the most dangerous fish in the world. Not so much because of their viciousness, I mean they look downright comical, especially when startled, but for the poison that they contain. Tetrodotoxin is a foul-tasting chemical that the pufferfish uses so that anything that tries to eat them immediately spits them out. Oh, and by the way, tetrodotoxin is also highly lethal, 1,200 times more poisonous than cyanide, in fact. But what, I hear you ask, does all this have to do with the floral egg crab? Simple, because the same toxin that makes the pufferfish so deadly can also be found in this deadly crustacean. Also called the green egg crab and the shawl crab, these deadly crustaceans can be found in the eastern Indian Ocean from Southeast Asia, south to Australia where it reaches Rottnest Island in Western Australia, and possibly Sydney in the east as well. Its range extends eastwards across the western Pacific as far as Hawaii, but despite its wide range, this crab is considered to be a vulnerable species. It's named for the fine network of fine lines, white or yellow, that forms a delicate lacy floral pattern. Tetrodotoxin is present throughout the crab's body, but the highest concentration can be found in its legs. Just touching this crab doesn't really do any harm, but eating it may well just be the last thing that you do. The curry puff crab. The curry puff crab's name lends itself better to a delicious piece of Indian pastry, but make no mistake here, snacking on this crab's legs is not a good idea. Not only does it share a resemblance to the floral egg crab, it also is just as deadly. Found in the waters and basically all over Asia, the curry puff crab gets its name from its striking resemblance to a curry puff, but that's where the resemblance ends. They can usually be found hiding in coral reefs where they're completely camouflaged, which is a bad thing because even touching one of these crabs can lead to poisoning. Ingesting them is also a big no as well. Not much is known about this species, but it seems that people have different reactions to the toxins, and effects range from a minor allergic reaction to a full life-threatening incident to, of course, death. Which is why I find it kinda weird that people still do keep them as pets. There's even guides online teaching people how to take care of them. At least these guides are honest about the dangers of keeping these crustaceans inside homes, though. The Mantis Shrimp. I'm pretty sure you're tired of the crabs by now, so let's move on to another branch of the crustacean family, shrimps. Now, this next entry on our list isn't just any ordinary shrimp. Yeah, it's tiny, as the word shrimp implies, but this one packs a mean punch. Literally. Mantis shrimps are a type of tiny crustacean that can be found in most of the Earth's oceans. It quite looks like any ordinary shrimp, save for two things. Two little fists that look like they're wearing, for lack of a better descriptor, boxing gloves. Made up of the same material as the shrimp's exoskeleton, these tiny appendages do serve a purpose, and that's to deliver such a devastating punch it's been known to break aquarium glass. When the mantis shrimp punches, its fist accelerates to the speeds of 80 kilometers per hour. To put that in perspective, that's right about the same speed of a .22 caliber bullet. This little crustacean uses this ability for both offense and defense. It regularly attacks larger crustaceans and uses its powerful punches to break open their hard shells to feast on their juicy flesh that's inside. Now, just imagine how painful it'd be if it decided to use its tiny but powerful fists on your finger. Ugh, makes me wince just thinking about it. The pistol shrimp. What is it with shrimps and superpowers? Again, we look at one of these tiny crustaceans with amazing abilities. In the previous entry, we met a shrimp that packs a punch. This time we're going to take a look at one of its cousins that uses its pincers to unleash a power that can stun and sometimes even kill its target instantly. The pistol shrimp is so named because it can be likened to a gunslinger. But instead of having a loaded gun that fires bullets, this tiny shrimp carries a different kind of weapon. Its oversized pincer, which shoots bubbles. Okay, stay with me here. I know what you're thinking. How can a bubble be lethal? Isn't that only in Pokemon or something? Well, it's got something to do with the speed in which the pincers close, and a little thing called cavitation, which happens when a bubble implodes when underwater. Basically, what happens is, when the shrimp snaps its pincers shut, it displaces water at a speed of 105 feet per second. When water moves at that speed, it instantly vaporizes and creates a bubble. When this bubble collapses in on itself, it creates a massive shockwave that can stun or instantly kill whatever it's pointed at. This implosion also generates a flash of light and, for a split second, can reach temperatures as hot as the surface of the sun. Yeah, this is just a Pokemon at this point. Either way, in essence, this tiny little crustacean has the ability to unleash the power of the sun. The Chinese Mitten Crab. Also known as the Shanghai hairy crab, the Chinese mitten crab is an Asian delicacy, hence it's being cultivated in the millions in China. However, once they're taken out of their natural habitat, these 10-centimeter crabs armed with a furry white claw become more than just a nuisance, but rather become one of the most damaging invasive species in the world. These extremely ravenous crustaceans arrive in the Americas as stowaways on boats, or are smuggled into countries with the intention of farming them for food. Mind you, that's illegally, of course. However, some have managed to escape into the wild and are wreaking havoc on the local ecosystem. They prey on wildlife, simultaneously upending food chains and fisheries. That's not the only damage these critters have done, though. Being a burrowing crab, they like to, well, bury themselves. And when they do this in the thousands, they can cause really expensive infrastructure damage. In fact, their activities have greatly contributed to soil erosion and damaged levees. They also pose a health threat. When eaten raw or lightly cooked, they can transmit a parasite that attacks the human lung. In England, mitten crabs have so inundated the River Thames that officials are mulling whether to start a fishery to sell them back to China, and local wildlife activists are launching campaigns to promote eating them. The Mosaic Reef Crab. Named after the beautiful markings all over its shell, the Mosaic Reef Crab is certainly one of the best looking crustaceans out there. But make no mistake, this is one of the most dangerous crabs that you're ever going to encounter. Although they can inflict enough pain with those black hairy pincers, they're relatively harmless, unless you eat them. Yeah, these crabs are so poisonous that even one bite can spell disaster. Much like the poison dart frog, these crustaceans are not born laced with deadly toxin. Instead, they acquired their poison from eating a certain type of poisonous sea cucumber. This toxin doesn't harm the crab itself and slowly builds up inside the crab's body until it reaches a deadly concentration. Many unwary predators have already died from taking a mouthful of one of these living cyanide pills. Like many in the animal kingdom, these crabs aren't shy in advertising their deadliness. It's been theorized that its colorful markings are a signal to predators of its highly dangerous nature. But despite that, a few people have made a mistake of eating one of these crabs. Just a few years ago, a Filipino fisherman caught some of these crabs and took them home to his family. They all died right after dinner. Not exactly a happy time there. The Japanese Spider Crab. If spiders creep you out, then this massive deep-sea spider will probably make you panic. And while it's not actually a spider, the Japanese spider crab has long spider-like legs, scuttles across the ocean floor, and can get monstrously huge in size. Scientists and researchers estimate that this crab can weigh up to 44 pounds and have a leg span of 13 feet at their largest. Now, not only does this mean that this crab could actually tower over you if you wanted, but it would also make the largest crab in the entire world that's still alive. Granted, they're not exactly hunters, but these crabs have been known to eat algae, kelp, mollusks, slow-moving invertebrates, and the dead bodies of any creatures that can happen to be floating around. In fact, this last option seems to be their favorite, as they seem to prefer to scavenge dead flesh rather than kill things themselves. Their legs may be spindly, but they can seriously hurt you. They don't often hunt their prey, but they can move quickly when needed thanks to their long legs and are able to kill smaller animals with ease. Their claws are also strong and large enough to pry open mussels and clams in order to get to the tasty flesh inside. In fact, when this crab was first discovered, the researcher documenting it noted that it could inflict serious injuries to humans, and had in fact done so while being caught. Now it's time for today's best pick. Today's pick is big, but not quite as big as depicted in this photo. But they're certainly big enough to be the biggest crab in Europe. Oh, and they can definitely bring the pain. The brown crab. Found all throughout the waters surrounding the British Isles, the brown crab is by far the largest crab species in British waters. Some also say the tastiest. These brown-shelled crustaceans usually grow to around 20 centimeters wide, and that's just the carapace. Some exceptional individuals, however, have grown to over 30 centimeters. Like all of the crab species in British waters, they have 8 legs and 2 very large and very powerful claws, with the pincers usually being tipped black. And of course, it's these claws you have to worry about. They can inflict a serious amount of pain, having crushing forces measuring at 90 pounds per square inch. Their brown coloring is perfect for camouflaging themselves in their natural habitat. They'll hide in cracks or under weeds, waiting for the best opportunity to strike, and then they'll strike at literally anything as they're not very picky eaters. Fish and other crustaceans are fair game, including other brown crabs. Yeah, these cannibals are voracious eaters, and they're always on the lookout for a meal. Despite it being dangerous to handle, these crabs are extremely commercially important, and the brown crab fishery in British waters is one of the largest crab fisheries in the world. Around a third of the crab's total body weight is edible meat, so that's about 3 pounds of extremely tasty crab meat. The Sawedged spooner crab. Certainly not a crab you want to spoon with, unless you find getting pricked with sharp, tiny spines delightful. Saw-edged spooner crabs get their name from the distinctive saw-like teeth on the edge of its carapace. You definitely don't want to accidentally step on one of these guys. Those teeth look like they actually hurt. They're particularly small crabs, growing to only about 6 centimeters, and have tiny claws that look like they don't hurt. Well, in reality, they do hurt, but not as much as these pincers don't have much crushing force behind it. They are, however, strong enough to crush the shells of some crustaceans in order to feed on the meat inside. But just why does this crab belong on this list? One word: poison. Yeah, like most crabs belonging to the Xanthidae family, the body of this crab is laced with toxins that can kill a man when ingested. And to add insult to injury, it looks very similar to other edible crabs. And although there aren't any records kept, many people have died from eating this deadly animal, mainly because people mistook them to be safe to eat. The emerald crab. Don't be fooled by its cute-sounding name and its cartoonish green color. The emerald crab is definitely one of the most dangerous crabs in the world, bar none. Its body is so packed with lethal toxins that eating one just may be the last thing that you do. These crabs are native to the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico and can be found from the Bahamas and southern Florida to the northern part of Brazil. They can usually be found about 177 feet deep in water, where they hang out all day eating algae, their main source of food. But they'll happily dine on the rotting bodies of dead sea creatures if they can find them. They're nocturnal, hiding in caves, crevices, and under rocks during the day. And although they are highly dangerous, these crabs are very popular in the pet trade, mainly due to how easy they are to take care of and because they're just so friggin' cute. The coconut crab. The Japanese spider crab may be the largest crustacean in existence, but the coconut crab is no slouch. This beefy guy is the largest terrestrial crustacean of them all. They weigh an average of 5 pounds, but some are absolute heavyweights at 9, and they also have a leg span of up to 36 inches. For reference, that's about 3 dinner plates, people. As their name suggests, coconuts make up a good portion of the coconut crab's diet. Thanks to their curved legs and inward grip, they can climb palm trees and use their strong claws to crack into coconuts with ease. It takes a lot of effort to crack a coconut, unless you're a coconut crab, of course. Their claws are strong enough to lift objects as heavy as 61 pounds, while their grip is about 10 times stronger than that of humans. In fact, their claws have the strongest pitching force of any crustacean. That isn't all they eat, however, as they've also been observed preying on animals such as rats, migratory seabirds, and even on each other. In the Chagas Archipelago, the Earth's largest coral atoll, coconut crabs were seen organizing a direct attack by sneaking up and catching an adult red-footed booby under the cover of night. Since they do most of their hunting at night, sensitivity to smell is vital for coconut crab survival. As they forage in the dark, the smell of fruit, nuts, or small animals attracts the crabs to their prey. In fact, as much as 40% of a coconut crab's brain is completely dedicated to smell. Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it, it really works. The Remipede. There's around 70,000 species of crustacean found so far, and while some of them can be poisonous when eaten, there are none that are venomous, at least until recently when scientists discovered the only venomous crustacean in the world. Enter the Remipede, which looks like centipedes, but that's really just a coincidence. These crustaceans can be found in coastal caves which are connected to the ocean by underground tunnels. The Remipedes were first discovered in the 1980s and named after the Latin word for oar-footed because of their many pairs of swimming legs. But its venomous nature wasn't discovered until just recently, actually. A team of scientists from the Natural History Museum in London have successfully characterized the cocktails of toxins in its venom. These creatures are undoubtedly venomous crustaceans and perhaps the only ones on the planet. The studies show that the Remipede's venom system is very sophisticated. One set of muscle contracts the creature's glands, pumping venom into its fangs. A second set of muscles stabs the fangs forward while squeezing a duct to prevent the venom from flowing backwards. Remipede venom consists of big enzymes like peptidases, which destroy other proteins, and chitinases, which break down the chitin in the external skeleton of arthropods. Together, these substances combine to soften the hard shells of the Remipede's prey and digest their innards. Yeah, this crustacean uses its venom to turn their prey's flesh and internal organs into soup. much like how spiders feed today. However, it's still unknown whether this venom is fatal to man, and honestly, I don't think we really want to find out. See you all next time!